Welcome to another edition of Real Estate Services and Transaction, otherwise known as REST. REST is a subsidiary of Reals Academy Limited. My name once again is Oluwafemi Sanusi, and I'm so delighted that you have joined us for another edition. In the house, as usual, we have a professional in the house, ESV Olalekan Abodere. He is the lead advisor of Olalekan Abodere Consulting, a firm of estate surveyors and valuers. He is also the Director of Studies of Reals Academy Limited, a real estate training center here in Lagos, Nigeria. Thank you once again for joining us for this program, sir.
Thank you, Femi, and welcome, viewers.
Yes, this edition or this episode is a continuation of our previous episode on the topic importance and benefits of property titles. And ESV Olalekan Abodere dwelt extensively on a number of things about property title. So we're going to start on that note. One of the things we mentioned when you mentioned a lot of examples of property titles. You know, you mentioned C of O and all the other ones. So I want you to talk about governor's consent.
Governor's consent.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Actually, in the last episode, I think that episode was on types and importance of property title. So we discussed extensively about the different types, even the categories in terms of equitable interest and equitable title and non-equitable title, which is the legal title and so on. Governor's consent. Governor's consent is a statutory requirement.
Okay.
And it's just what the law requires for an individual to obtain a legal title, where there is a secondary transaction.
Okay.
Where what we mean by secondary transaction in this case is a situation, for example, where a property already have a legal title, like a certificate of occupancy, for example. And there is supposed to now be an alienation of the interest vested in that through that legal title. It will require, the laws require that is Land Use Act, requires that the consent of the governor be obtained. And I remember I mentioned it in our earlier episodes, in one of the earlier presentations, that this consent is supposed to be a prior consent.
Okay.
That is a consent that's supposed to be obtained prior to alienation.
Okay.
However, because it's all about buyers beware, and it's buyer that wants title, therefore, that obligation is always transferred to the buyer.
Okay.
But what it means is that it's in fulfillment of the provision of law that for any forms of alienation of interest in land, that, of course, is subject to a legal title. Right? Then there must be governor's consent to obtain a legal title. So consent is required for secondary transactions.
Okay.
Secondary transaction here is transaction that relates to alienation of rights in land where the property already has an existing legal title.
Okay.
So that is governor's consent.
Okay.
Now, let me add in this regard that we have always been hearing, particularly, I'm sure you must have been hearing that too, that when people want to market property, in the course of marketing property, they want to explain the kind of title that the property has. And you hear them saying it's governor's consent.
No doubt about it.
Right? Yes. Or that you hear them saying consent. You see, that is not normal. That is not correct. Because consent itself is not a title. Governor's consent, minister consent is not a title. It's just a process that the law requires that must be complied with before a title, which will be in an equitable state before, to now be a legal title. It's a statutory requirement. So on its own, the consent itself, for example, the consent is not a deed. It comes with endorsement on the deed.
That's correct.
Right? So, consent, governor's consent or ministerial consent on its own is not a title. right, is only a process to formalize, to perfect titles such that the title becomes a legal title and it will convey a legal interest. Okay? Now, another side to it is this. It's not only sales or assignment that requires that requires consent, governor's consent.
Yeah.
Sublease requires governor's consent.
Okay.
Alienation by assignment requires governor's consent. By mortgage requires governor's consent. If you are now saying governor's consent, they ask for title, you say it's governor's consent. What title are you referring to?
That's correct.
What title? Are you saying a governor's consent relating to a deed of mortgage? Or relating to a deed of sublease? Or relating to a deed of assignment? All right? So, in a nutshell, governor's consent on its own is not a title, but it's a necessary process that is required in property titling, particularly where it has to do with secondary transaction. Again, let me mention here that you don't need governor's consent when it's a primary transaction. Because you have to initiate and originate processing a CFO.
That's correct.
Yeah, I'm aware that there is a process now in Lagos to fast track issue of processing the CFO, by way of coming up with deed, and they now process it and they, but the law, what the law says is when there is alienation of interest in land, then you seek governor's consent.
Yeah, and you mentioned something with respect to mortgage, and I think there's a case between an individual and a bank. So I just want you to just use that as a case study to explain that what governor's consent is.
Anyway, don't let you are referring to, you want to refer to the case of Agilo.
Yes.
Okay,
sir.
don't for now. Just let's mention a case of Agilo, right?
Yes,
it's a celebrated case. It's a case that what that case actually does is to emphasize the importance of governor's consent in secondary transaction, right? And the implication is this: where there are two transactions in respect of a parcel of land, maybe fraudulently.
Okay.
And one obtains governor's consent. The other one has not obtained the governor's consent.
Okay.
The one that obtained governor's consent has complied with the provision of statutes.
Okay.
That is the one the law will uphold.
Okay.
And that is the main crop of that case.
Okay.
Yeah, because it has to do with pending mortgage transaction that requires governor's consent and a subsequent sales.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it underscores the importance of governor's consent in alienation of interest in land.
Okay. Thank you, sir. So, viewers, I need us to understand this point that he has mentioned, that governor's consent is not a title.
Particularly the marketing agents.
Exactly. Yeah, the marketing agents are into real estate.
They should know. They should be able to say, oh, you can say a registered deed of assignment.
Exactly.
Huh? Or you want to go further, you say with governor's consent, or that has been consent. With the moment you even say a registered deed of assignment, that has the undertone that the consent has been obtained. Because registration of title will not be done without the endorsement, without that governor's consent and stamp duty. So a registered deed of assignment, a registered deed of sublease, and so on and so forth. So I think marketers should be properly guided.
Okay.
Yeah, in this regard.
Okay, sir. So moving on, now that we understand, like previous episode and this episode I've continued from now, we understand what property title is. So now the viewers will wonder, or those watching us, they wonder that, okay, so what is in it for me? What's the benefit and the importance of these property titles?
Oh, that's a very good one. The benefit of property title cannot be overemphasized. I will mention few now, but cannot be overemphasized. But before I go into the benefits, let me refer to Anando De Sonto.
Okay.
He wrote a book called, that book, we read the book.
The Mystery of Capital.
The Mystery of Capital. Every real estate practitioner should read that book. In fact, every real estate investor should read that book. I even say every leader of any community, starting from the president of the nation to governor, should read that book. Because, you see, that book is able to show to us the importance of title to land. And how land can contribute, can be a major asset of the nation. and how being a major asset can, contribute to economic development, can contribute to empowerment, can lead to national development. All these they are things that De Sonto are able to explain in his book of which is The Mystery of Capital.
Yeah.
But what is important there is this. That book underscores the importance of land titling, getting title for land. Right? And he gave an analogy, for example. In fact, his first position is that where you have land holding that is not titled, you have an asset in deformed state.
That's correct. I think they call it dead capital.
Dead capital. Dead capital. You can imagine the extent of dead capital we have in Lagos. Because Lagos, the last research that I know, I don't know of anyone yet again, claim that the out of the land holdings in Lagos, the one that is titled is just about 30%.
Wow.
It means we have 70% dead capital. This dead capital is not contributing significantly. As a matter of fact, it's going to hinder mortgage sector. The mortgage sector cannot grow where we have huge dead capital in terms of land holdings without title. There's no way they will grow because you need a well-proper titled land to serve as collateral.
That's correct.
Am I making sense?
Yeah.
To serve as collateral. Without that, of course, it means 70% of our land is not bankable.
That's correct.
Right? It's not suitable as collateral. It then means that ordinarily is an hindrance, is an impairment to the growth of mortgage sector. Again, just as we have talked about mortgage sector, what makes America to be America? Why will anybody go to America with portfolio and become successful? It's because their mortgage system works. They have credit facility that works, right? In Nigeria, for example, and African countries, if we look into what De Sonto says and, transform our debt capital to live capital, to living assets that will contribute to the equity of our nation, we will be empowered.
That's correct.
So that again go to an extent to explain the importance of having to title our property. And government should look into that.
That's correct.
Very, very important, because it will not only contribute to individual development, it will contribute to national development.
Yeah.
And another good thing about that book that you mentioned is that, see, he gave an analogy that think of somebody who has an enterprise, a company, without proper registration of the company, right? That company will not be able to grow beyond, the capacity, its personal capacity, beyond its purse. Because there is no instrument, no basis for him to generate income from other sources. He won't be able to have inflow from other sources because he has not made that company sellable. He has not made it bankable. He has not made it a product that people can have confidence in it because it's not registered. So the growth of that company will be limited to its capacity and whatever the level of its cost is. Now, think of a company that is properly registered with good documentation. It can carry its documents to bank and raise capital, working capital, investment capital, and the like. It can go to finance institutions. It can even go to individual and seek partnership, right? Because the company is properly registered. So also is the case of land and title, right? Now, having said that, what are benefits?
Yeah.
The first of it is what we call security of interest. The interest vested with that title will be highly secured by the time it's registered. Because it will have the backing of the law.
That's correct.
Right? Government will witness to it. Is that not so? So it's that security of tenure, of interest will be there, not tenure. Security of interest will be there. It makes the interest to be secured, to be ascertainable, to be clear. And stemming from there too, there will be transparency in terms of dealing. So it will instill confidence in the market participants. They will have confidence because there is clarity of the structure of that holding. There is transparency about the holding. right? And it's a secured interest. So it will instill confidence in the mind of buyers, prospective buyers, or market dealers, right? So again, apart from that, you see, when you title your property, it can be traced to government cover. The survey that delineates it is traced to government cover. And so it becomes a well-structured asset. No more a dead capital now. It's a living asset. Exactly. It's an asset that has another importance again. Is what we call capacity. Leverage. It's an asset that will be able to attract capital from other sources and therefore generating financial leverage. Right? Then it's an asset that you can defend against all externalities the moment there is title. So these are some of the benefits of having registered title, proper titling of land.
Okay, yeah. In fact, there's a point you mentioned that I really like, because you and I are both passionate about this country and about national development, and with respect to titling as it affects the economy and how the role the government can play in it, and also the financial institutions, as a whole. So I don't know. Do you think
see, Femi? Let me come in here. Sorry for cutting you short. You see, in that aspect, this is an analogy even from the Soto anyway. Think of a farmer, who has acreage of land without title. He is limited to just tilling that land and harvesting on that land.
That's correct.
He cannot there's no financial leverage.
That's correct.
He cannot take the document to bank and say, I need capital to do agro-allied.
That's correct.
Whereas it's an asset. The similitude of it again is somebody who has maybe a block of flats without a title. The best he could do is occupying it or is generating rental income from it. He cannot go beyond that. He wants to get job. They need a pledge. That will not be suitable as a pledge.
That's correct.
He wants to get capital from finance institutions or from bank, and they need collateral. Where there is no title, it will not be suitable.
That's true.
As collateral. In fact, in my language, I say it's not bankable.
Excuse me.
Permit me to mention that, see, in handling valuation in my practice, right? If you want to value your asset and your intention, the purpose is for mortgage. If it does not have title, my position is that asset is not bankable. Why do you waste your time carrying out that valuation? My team will demand we need the title. Apart from the fact that ascertaining the interest in land is very, very significant in valuation, particularly when it's market valuation. We'll be discussing all those things in future episodes, right? Apart from that, when it is for mortgage, it is important because there is foreseeability there. You know that for this asset, if it's to serve as collateral, then there must be a registered title. If it's not with registered title, it's not bankable. It's not a bankable asset. Therefore, it cannot attract the capital. Right? So now, that is from individual. Now go to Nigeria or all other developing countries as a nation. This is a case where we have, good 18 now, we have various standards, accounting standards. We have IPSAS, for example, International Public Sector Accounting Standard. If the focus of CISA is that all these public assets too, they are capital to government. Now, the question is, what is the state of our land in terms of title? How will it contribute to this capital? So it's very, very important. And government, we have fragmented land everywhere. If government will see to proper land titling, in fact, it starts from ensuring that the land is properly organized.
Yeah, I agree.
The fact that will be done alone will leave us out of fragmented land and gets us well laid out land, and the potential of the land could be optimized. You can think of the implication of planning on land value in that area.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. This has been a very exciting episode of this program today. I don't know. Do you have any final words, sir?
Simply put, don't leave your asset as a dead capital. And if you want to process your title, consult your professional because they will do it better.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. This has been an exciting episode of Real Estate Services and Transactions. Please remember to follow our social media accounts on the bottom of the screen. And until next time, bye-bye from me and God bless you.